Mic check 1 2 1 2. It's the Y2K collector here, and I'm having a hard time figuring out what makes a grail a grail. Like, what makes a video game grail achieve the status that it gets to the point where people are willing to pay nearly anything for it. It's something that has perplexed me for quite some time because I like all types of games. I like games that are fun. I like games that are cheap. Some of the games that I like happen to be very expensive. And it's just a wide range of what I see. But a lot of times, some of the more expensive games, it never really seems like there's a rhyme or reason to it, especially when you look at retro games. And I guess when it comes to certain retro games, I can kind of understand because, when you think about something like how old they are, like for instance, if you look at a game like Demon's Crest, right? A complete in box copy of Demon's Crest, it's easy to understand why that would be a $400 game. It's an iconic game on the Super Nintendo, one of the best-selling consoles of all time, one of the most widely known consoles of all time. Beautiful game. Rare to find it complete in box at this point, 30 plus years later. So I understand why that would be expensive. Burning Rangers. For one, it's on a platform that is already expensive. Sega Saturn games just are expensive to begin with. And Burning Rangers itself is a very rare game. So I can understand why Burning Rangers would be an expensive game in the $600 to $700 range. Even when I look at certain games like Suikoden 2 or Lunar, these are games that are kind of rare for their platforms, right? Not a ton of copies of Suikoden 2 or Lunar, and both are very good RPGs. Even if you look at a game like Fist of the North Star Ken's Rage 2, right? While this isn't as old as some of the other games that we talked about, there's a rarity factor here, right? You can't play this game any longer online on the 360 store because it's been shut down. And because the only release of this game, I believe, for North America was on the 360, there is a PS3 version of this game, but that was only released in Japan. We don't have that version here in North America. So if you want to play an English version of Fist of the North Star 2, you would have to play it on the 360. And if you did not, before they closed the 360 store, you had the option of playing it online, right? But now that it's closed, the only way to play this game in North America outside of emulation is to play it here physically. Now, I know that they left, unless you had it like downloaded to your console, I guess. If you had it already on your console, then I think you still have access to it. If I'm not mistaken, I think those were part of the rules when they closed the 360 store. But that caused this game to shoot up well into the 150s and probably even $200 in some cases. And unless something changes and access is granted to this game again on a wide scale, this will stay in the grail status for the 360, which the 360 is transitioning into retro status. I think some people still struggle looking at the 360 and the PS3 as retro games at this point, just because they still feel so modern and so close to what we see today when we play consoles that have been released. It's easier for us to accept, like, Sega Saturn, Super Nintendo, DS, it's easy for us to accept these consoles as retro because when we play the games, they feel retro. They feel old. 360 and PS3 don't feel old enough, even though they're two generations back, right? We've already gotten the PS4 and we've gotten the PS5. So we're well beyond that. We've gotten the Xbox One and then we got the Xbox Series. So we're well past the days of the 360 and the PS3, but still there's people, I feel like this generation is still transitioning into grail status. But when it comes to a game like The Messenger, this game easily sells for anywhere between $300 and $400 online. And this is not an old game. The Messenger is a game that you can still download from the Nintendo eShop. You can still download it on the PlayStation Network, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think this game has been delisted. If I'm wrong, someone can let me know down in the comments, but I think you still have plenty of access to this game to play it, yet the physical version of this game is already in the hundreds of dollars. And the thing about it is we are still currently in the Switch generation. The Switch has not, or at least the Switch 1 for that matter, has not been laid to rest yet. We're still getting games for the Switch. I know there's been talks about the Nintendo Switch 2, but I don't think any dates have been confirmed on that yet. So this is still very much a relevant game, and it's already at this level. And I'm really trying to figure out what made this game reach grail status, much like a lot of these games. You know, we could say that it's rarity. We could say that it's the fun factor. We could say a number of things. There's a number of reasons we could put on it. But when it comes to the Messenger, outside of, you know, I don't know, this being a special reserve game, it being a numbered game, I'm really not sure why this game is so expensive. And the thing that comes to my mind is that if it's $300 to $400 now, and we're still currently in the Switch generation, man, what is this game going to be worth 10 years from now, 20 years from now? Especially if they no longer make any more physical copies of this game, The Messenger, what will that copy go for? And I think a lot of us have grails in our collection, and some of the grails that we have in our collection, they're games that we just had to have because we wanted to play them. We wanted to experience them. They were games that, you know, really meant a lot to us. And then I think some people just have grails in their collection just to have them, right? Lunar was a game that I got on a trade. I had a lot of trade credit that I needed to burn. And so I decided to pick up this copy of Lunar. Had I known that I would have ran into a PS1 copy a couple years ago or a couple years later for $60, maybe I would not have traded for this copy of Lunar, but I have it now. And I'm considering selling this out of my collection. I really don't need a Sega CD version of this game. This isn't something that I need to have in the collection, but I have it nonetheless. Suikoden 2, I've always wanted to get into the Suikoden series, just never really got a chance to dive into it. But now that I am like thinking about diving into it, they're actually remaking this game, and there's going to be a version that comes out on the Nintendo Switch. So, you know, don't know if this will be as relevant or if I'll really need to be attached or stay attached to that disc anymore. And so, again, it just makes me wonder what makes a grail a grail. How do we as the gaming community decide which games are going to be stupidly expensive and which games we're just going to ignore and say, you know what, we don't care about this game. We're going to just make this a $5 game. And I often kind of like compare the sneaker market to the video game market because, you know, the sneaker market runs off of a lot of hype. There are a lot of great sneakers, amazing sneakers that no one wants when they first come out, whether it's because they're easily accessible, whether it's because there are a lot of pairs made, whether it's because there's no special meaning behind it. For whatever reason, the sneaker just isn't popular or expensive or whatever the case, doesn't resell for much. But then sometimes you go years down the line and that same shoe is now selling for $700, $800 for whatever reason. And I just think sometimes the price shifts do feel a little arbitrary. So let me know down in the comments, what do you think makes a grail a grail? Is it the rarity? Is it the scarcity? Is it the desirability? What is it? Let me know your thoughts. I'm interested to know. It's the Y2K Collector. I'll catch you in the next video. Take it easy.